if you want to look at Raptor history, we're the foundation. Vince was the building. He took it from the foundation, and he was the door, the windows, and then Kawhi came later and became the ceiling, and to complete the building. But Vince was, he did everything for that organization for the time he was there. Do you think jerseys, Nike shoes, and all of that stuff would be flying off the shelf if it wasn't for Vince Carter up in Toronto? I don't think so. He was Air Canada. That was his nickname. Half man, half amazing. He had a bunch of nicknames because he was incredible at what he did up there. He was a perennial all-star. When he was at the top of his game, there weren't too many that was better. He was definitely top 3, top 4, top 5 in the league when he was in his prime. You got to account for, Jordan was at the end. Kobe was still there. Shaq was still doing his thing. So you got to at least account for those guys before Vince. That would have been great if they could have worked that out for him to come up there for his last year and retire a Raptor, because of all the great things he did, the way he represented the city, the way he represented the organization. That would have been great. And then finish the year, last game of the retired at number 15. That would have been great because he deserves to be the first retired jersey up there before anybody else.
I think his legacy is among the more layered legacies that I've maybe covered in my time in sports. And that is that, at his height, he was maybe the best player. You could probably argue, but he might have been the best player on planet Earth. And he was without a doubt the most electrifying player on planet Earth. And when he was in his prime, I was covering the Raptors for theScore television network. And every highlight pack was must-see TV. Like, forget the games. Like, you would watch highlight packs over and over again to see all the different looks on the things that he was doing. He was doing things that I had never seen before in my life, and it inspired an entire nation of Canadians to start picking up basketballs. And without Vince Carter, I don't know if the Raptors are able to evolve into the team that wins the championship with 7 million people watching across the country. Vince Carter laid the groundwork for all that. But with Vince Carter's legacy, you can't leave out the fact that he quit on his team. And he told people he quit on his team. He admitted that he told another team what play they were going to run to end the game. His numbers in his final season with Toronto and his numbers with New Jersey once he was traded tell you the story that you need to know about what Vince Carter did to get out of Toronto. And what Vince Carter to me is a guy who, if he had have had the work ethic and the self-awareness that wouldn't allow him to do things like I just talked about, he could have been one of the greatest basketball players of all time. He could have been Kobe Bryant. Yeah. Like Kobe Bryant and Vince Carter, if you look at the trajectories of their career early on, they match up. But Kobe had this Mamba mentality, and Kobe had this work ethic that wasn't going to allow him to ease back into whatever it was going to be. And Vince Carter, if you look at the career, 20 seasons, there's not a lot of winning basketball there. I mean, the most he ever won in Toronto was 48 games. This year's Raptors team, with I think 18 left to play before we put it on pause, had 47 wins. And that was a bunch of dudes cobbled together who were not first-round picks, who were some undrafted free agents. And they were one win away from the Raptors' glory years with Vince Carter. I think his legacy is twofold. If you want to remember one or the other, I'm not going to hate on you. But if you're a true basketball fan, if you're a true Raptors lover, you have to understand that his legacy is a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B, and wherever you want to focus on, I'm good with. I think a lot of that, should you retire Vince Carter's number, began with there was no one else. And now I think there are others. I think Vince's beloved reconciliation with the franchise will lead to that. But there are hardcores that have been around as long as I've been around that will hate that Vince Carter's number will go up to the Raptors, and I understand that. But if you take a look at the big picture of all who follow the franchise, not a lot of people remember what happened on the way out. They just remember the highlights, and I'm cool with that too.
Vince Carter was electric. Vince Carter was box office. Vince Carter demanded to be on the highlight shows every night because his athleticism and his aerial acrobatics were reminiscent of Michael Jordan. And unfortunately, because he went to North Carolina like Michael Jordan, the comparisons have been hanging over his head his entire career. But we loved him in Toronto. And working I was at theScore at the time, and Vince and I are around the same age. So watching Vince put Toronto on the map was like very special to me and very special to us at theScore and in the Canadian media, because we had a legit superstar playing in Toronto. Previously, there were superstars in baseball. We had Roberto Alomar. I don't know if Joe Carter was quite a superstar in baseball, but Roberto Alomar was a legit superstar. Paul Molitor was a star. John Olerud won a batting title. I don't know if he was a star, though. And then, I mean, hockey isn't quite as big in the United States as it is in Canada. And obviously, at the time, in the early 90s, in the Jays era, Wayne Gretzky was the face of the NHL, and that's why he was traded to the LA Kings in order to grow the game. So we had a basketball star in Toronto, and we had the purple jerseys and the dinosaur, and it was exciting. There was so much potential with him and Tracy McGrady. When Tracy McGrady left to go to Orlando to be his own man, it was a bit of a step down, but we were still optimistic and hopeful, and our big rival in Philadelphia ultimately stunted the Raptors' progression in the playoffs. But what I remember about that time was being very hopeful and optimistic, and seeing the reverberations of the Vince Carter effect across Canada was amazing. And, on the other side, in the Western Conference, we had Steve Nash, not on the same level, but coming into prominence in Dallas, and then obviously in Phoenix. He was a two-time MVP, but it was very exciting. Well, his legacy extends beyond the Raptors. His legacy, he influenced the culture of basketball in Canada and inspired many NBA players to pursue basketball as a career and pursue their dreams. From Tristan Thompson to Corey Joseph to Andrew Wiggins, Kelly Olynyk. There are a number of current NBA, Jamal Murray, of NBA players who watched Vince Carter when they were 6 or 8 or 10, and they're like, oh, this guy plays for my team. He plays in Canada, and he's putting my team on the map. So I would say that is a big part of his legacy. Now, what he did on the court, it was special, and certainly you can't, you got to take the good with the bad. The way he departed Toronto will always be a part of the conversation, and at the time, he just didn't want to play here anymore, and he got injured a few times in a row, I believe in the 02-03 season and 03-04 season. So he left on bad terms, but at his peak, he was a very special player and one of the most exciting players in the NBA, which the league needed to lean on its new stars because they were in a post-Michael Jordan era. So the league needed to lean on Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant and Allen Iverson, and Vince Carter was among those with like Kevin Garnett in order to carry the league forward. And you're probably going to ask about retiring his jersey, and I think his jersey will be retired eventually, but I think Kyle Lowry's jersey and DeMar DeRozan's jersey and potentially even Kawhi Leonard's jersey need to be retired. Oh, sorry, Chris Bosh's jersey and potentially Kawhi Leonard's jersey need to be retired first, and then Vince's. Obviously, Vince's career is done, and his jersey's eligible to be retired, but I think Kyle deserves that honor first.
The arena was electric. It's like he was doing some stuff that no one saw before, and took everybody by surprise that they didn't even know how to react. That's how crazy his dunks were. Now, we've seen a couple people put their elbow in the rim, and that was just to mess around at the end because he had it won. But that reverse 360 windmill he did, you know, the one through the legs, like he was the first one, you know, to do that on TV in front of people. You know, what he did was ridiculous. And let's not discount some of the dunkers in that dunk contest. Tracy Murray did some crazy stuff. It's like there were some dudes that was trying to compete, but they were here and he was just way up here. It just wasn't any competition. Like you could put all the dunk champions together, and they couldn't touch Vince Carter in the dunk contest.
Oh wow!
All of the NBA champions, they couldn't touch Vince Carter, man.
Yeah,
he's ridiculous.
Insane. Half man, half amazing.
Extremely creative. You know, he did dunks he know he can make on the first time. It's crazy. The dunks that he was making on the first time. Come on, man.